Hello, friends! Today we have Jan from Canopy Games on the stream.
Woohoo! Hello, friends! Today I'm with Jade the Kobold from Jade the Kobold.
And he's going to be suffering, because I'm going to be playing his game and giving my opinions.
Good. I want your opinions.
And I got full permission to be savage on my opinions and to construct this. So.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I'm thinking I'm going to let you play and answer questions if you had any, and then we can talk about it afterwards.
Excellent. I do want to hear your react. Okay. I don't want you to respond to my thoughts. I don't want while I'm doing my initial play. I don't want you to respond to my thoughts, but I absolutely want you to hear your reactions. I want to hear no, I want to hear funny noises. Okay, that's super important. Okay.
Okay. I'm just warming up, don't worry.
And hello everybody in chat. And before we start, I do have a little bit of bookkeeping though. This is going to be part of the festival for the Go Godot Game Jam. If you want to enter the jam and make a game, you should. If you've ever made a game before, or if you haven't made a game before, play along with the jam, try and make something interesting. And it's going to be a great way of starting out, learning Godot, learning programming. If you ever thought about making games, the only way to make games is to make games, so start out.
Yep. And a great way of getting good as a game designer is to work with other people, which is something jams are really good for.
And there are lots of good ways to use your money. We have a fundraiser that actually supports Godot, because Godot is completely free for everybody, so that is a good thing to spend money on. As well as my donation link is on the bottom of the screen here. And if you also want to donate without spending any money, for the entire month, I am donating $1 for every new subscriber I get. Ooh. I'm just going to take my total subscriber count at the end of the month and subtract it from what it was at the beginning of the month, and that's going to be a donation count. And then, so yeah, go ahead. Easiest dollar you'll ever make it hurt. All right, so this is a game. I could click how to click. Those are definitely words that I could have said, but I didn't. I could click how to play, but I'm not going to, because I want to see how well the game teaches me how to play it on its own.
That's why I put it near the bottom, so it wasn't the first thing people saw.
All right. Mouse does not do anything. All right, arrow keys work. WASD work as well. I like the rim lighting, or the glow lighting on the Pac-Man pellet here.
Thank you.
It's pretty clear what I have to do. I mean, I have to get I assume it's a block pushing puzzle, right? I have to assume. Okay, yeah.
It is.
And there's only, so I can see right here, there's only one thing that we can do. There's only one thing we can do, which is get that in there. Now, it is still possible to fail this.
It is.
But it's actually fairly difficult to fail it, because you can't put it into this corner, you can't put it into this corner, and it would be actively difficult to put it into this corner, which means the only way you could fail it would be dropping it down all the way here. But you are funneled to do that, interestingly. You are funneled down from here down, so your natural movement would push the block down there, which is interesting.
Yeah, you need to leave some fail states in. Like, you need to give people the possibility of failing so they know it's possible.
So I guess we'll just do what I'm supposed to. Shadowing, easy, good, nice. Adorable, I love it.
Thank you.
Alright. Okay, seems pretty straightforward. My cursor's going to be buggy. You know what, I'm going to leave this on here just so that it bugs somebody. Yep. Someone's going to be annoyed by that cursor, and that's going to be funny to me. So if you're annoyed by that cursor, make sure you leave a comment about it, okay?
I should point out, by the way, this is a prototype for a course we're building. This is not a full game, so there's 9 levels, so Jade will finish this pretty quickly.
Oh gosh, I had planned an entire 2-hour stream on this.
You lie.
No, like I don't, actually.
Watch. We can talk about it for 2 hours, that's fine, but you'll have to replay the same levels again.
All right. You know what we could do? Easy as. So you know what we could do is we could, if you're amicable to it, we could show off your screen and show off what you're doing in Godot, like the back end.
Yeah. I have to figure out where to share it, but I could just share it there. Yep.
Yeah, we have ways. I failed. I have failed here, haven't I? Yeah, because this has to go all the way to the right, which leaves me no way... Oh, no, I can put it down here and go over there earlier. Never mind.
That was quite the little journey you took us on.
Look, I may not be smart.
Sorry, I thought there was more to it.
No, nope, that's it. And bam. You like the
I'm very proud of the little dance. Yep.
Okay. Now, I am already trained that I can move this thing, and that this thing goes in the thing. It seems pretty clear that these are going to be movable as well. And that because they're dark, I'm going to assume that they are trash.
Look at me not answering.
But I'm going to push it in here anyways to see what happens. Yep, fair enough. So let's restart that. Ooh, nothing, no animation on the restart, just snaps.
Mm-hmm.
It also cleans up the particles. Does it go do that automatically?
I'm reloading the scene, so yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. It is a scene reload. Fair enough.
Yeah. So while Jade is rocking this, I want to point out the reason I thought they might enjoy this is I was watching them struggle with a lack of tutorial in a game a few days back, and I've been trying to work on my invisible tutorial skills and like funneling players into a certain decision and all the rest of it. So I wanted to see their reaction to this.
So here's something that I find fascinating. Okay, I want to talk about this for a second. You see these two... Right now we have a cluster of blocks, right? They're sort of designed like they're debris in a roadway of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
What I find fascinating is these two blocks here.
Yep.
Because these two blocks can never be moved.
Nope.
With the tools given to me, there is no way that I can ever move either of these blocks.
That's right.
But by making them blocks as opposed to black border, it visually makes the symmetry cleaner, but it also gives that impression of a blockade rather than just having a smattering of unmovable blocks.
And it's also trying to train the players that you can put these in such a situation that you can't move them. Like, it's trying to subconsciously show them there is a way you can mess this up if you move these badly.
Alright, so that does actually, unfortunately, mean that I can't do my ultimate goal of putting all of the dark pieces down here.
No, you can't. I'm sorry. Your predecessor was very selfish in the two-can warehouse.
Boink. Oh, I can still push blocks after the victory screen.
Yes, you
That's
can.
good to know. Alright.
I like your dancing mouse.
That's... Honestly, that's just a thing that I've always done. Like, I've made so many people annoyed by that. It's great. Have I failed here? I think I may have failed here.
I doubt it.
Nope. Easy game, easy life. So I can't hold a button and slide.
No, and this is some feedback I've been getting a lot. And there is a reason for that. If you hold the button down, it's actually very hard to be precise, and people keep overshooting.
Well, yes and no. You could make a buffered input where it doesn't accept another input for a few moments until you're in that next position.
Mm-hmm. We did play with it. We also made the toucan faster, which actually made this feel a lot less chill.
Yeah, that's an interesting entire conversation, isn't it? Because people want, like, snappy and quick movement. People want to cut out the waiting. People whine about... Oh, that's cute. Wait, why does that matter? Oh, it's gonna be another one under this, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I got it. Wait a minute. Okay.
I actually had to add this level in specifically because I was trying to teach too many things in the next level.
I was really hoping that was going to destroy the object.
Yeah, you're actually the first person to try that.
Don't worry, quality is assured. Oh, that's actually interesting too. I can push it off of the final square too. Alright, there's more going on here.
I will point out
right
this
here.
is the final level.
This right here is the same as before. These can never be moved. This is simply to show that this is a good place to put a regular block. It looks like there's never going to be a reason not to do that, so I think we'll do that first. I like that use there, because this, by making those blocks as opposed to just a nook in the wall, hey! Rude.
Yeah, I had to put the last level in to teach the plus pressure plate because the difficulty spike is huge. Like I was just showing look, we can actually make these quite challenging, but I wasn't giving enough information for people to actually have the tools they needed to do the level properly.
So if I should move this thing over to there, that seems good and powerful. That locks that. And I suppose I have to care about that fact, huh? And this doesn't seem to hold any value. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Okay, so that's a red herring, I think. What if... Okay. Wait, no, I see what it is. Never mind. I got it. There's gonna be another plus underneath this boy. How do I get into that then? I'm gonna... Interesting. So there's going to be a plus under this block that does something. Probably, I'm guessing, put a hole in this wall here. Let's find out. No, there's not.
Nope.
Interesting. Okay. But you see what I was thinking, though. You see my logic.
I do, and it's interesting that you think that.
I've played far too many Kaizo / I Want to Be the Guy games that it's kind of drilled into me to, to fear to fear that kind of logic here.
Yeah, I'm trying not to punish the player. Oh, we have a question.
Oh, hey, Cheeseness. Cheeseness is in chat. That's cool. Puzzle is asking you a question, you have to figure it out. Yeah. Okay, so this is never going to be useful because I'm going to have to need to put a block here to unlock it, and then I get a block out of it, which is never going to make up the cost of putting it in there, right? So that, I believe, has to be a red herring. Because if I want to lock this in, I need to push a block there, and then I get a block. It's a block for a block. Doesn't seem like great value to me. So this presumably needs to... And if I move... Bam. Oh, I didn't notice this. I did not notice that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's troublesome. But there's no entry here, so there's still... Well, I don't know what this plus does. Let's find out what this plus does. But that's the opposite of helpful.
I will point out this is soluble. Or solvable. It's not soluble. Don't dissolve it.
Okay. We need a big brain play here.
Mm-hmm.
If I move this down first, I don't need to worry about it later. But if I do this, it gets locked here, so that I never need to come back into this area again. That area is complete, don't need to worry about it. Except I need to move this thing in. No, this up here never has a downside, so this is always the first move. Because this never has a downside. That's a pure bonus. Right now I could put this block all the way into here, which seems like it would be the best option so I don't ever have to go into this section again. And closing that off is no longer going to be a detriment.
It's the question that sacrifice black and save yellow. We want to save all the blocks, but the black blocks are happy where they are.
So that should be just be a clean line, right? That should just be solved game. Yay!
Very nice.
Okay. How was my time?
Those were 9 levels. It's 15 minutes. Pretty good.
Solid.
So what interests me is, and I'm trying to figure out how to teach this, there's kind of a contract you have to make when you're making a puzzle game, right? For me, a game is all about the essential experience. In fact, to me, the game is the essential experience. The rules and the graphics and everything else are like the paints, right? That's how you create the game. They're not the game itself. But a puzzle game should make you feel smart. It shouldn't make you feel stupid, and it shouldn't make you feel cheated. And the worst thing you can do is have a situation where the player knows the solution but can't enact it. Witness is a great example of this. Witness has a couple of puzzles where I knew what I had to do, I understood the puzzle, but I didn't know exactly where they wanted me to stand to see the clue. And it just felt like I was being cheated.
Yeah, I've seen a few games that have had similar concerns where it's like, there's also the possibility of that with an execution puzzle, you know, where the answer is like, I can see what I have to do, I know what I have to do, I have solved the figuring out what I have to do of this.
And when you mess up, you should know why.
Yeah, but I lack the dexterity to do it, for example, you know.
Right.
For an execution-based game, you know, and that can also be frustrating for different reasons.
Yeah, Human Fall Flat does that. Like, the puzzles are very well designed, but occasionally just grappling with the control system can get in the way.
And anything, yeah. There we go. So.
So I'm curious your thoughts on the invisible tutorial innings. Also, by the way, a lot of these have multiple solutions, because it doesn't matter if you find the solution I have, as long as you find the solution that works.
I've heard people say that that's a good way of managing difficulty, is how many solutions are there. The more solutions that are possible, the easier the puzzle can be labeled.
Yep. I like to think of it as how hard does it feel to you, and how clever do you feel with the solution? To me, that's what makes the puzzle valuable, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I think that's a really good way of framing it for this game, Sapphire. Although the question could also be, who left the place in such a mess, and what were they thinking?
And there's 1,000 different ways you could retheme this, you know?
Oh, yeah.
There's 1,000 different themings.
That's the benefit of making a course, right? Is you get to see all the fun ways other people take your idea and run with it. So this level is basically just teach you what the pressure plate is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Like, it's not really a challenge. But I had to put the next one in because I'm introducing, without this level, there are plates hidden under things, there are positive and negative plates, and there is a certain order that you have to do things in. And that's too many things to introduce in one level. Like, people were just getting lost.
You know, here's an interesting conveyance response. I didn't realize until you made that statement that the -1 subtracted stuff off the map and the plus signs added stuff to the map.
Yep.
I did not make that connection at all.
Interesting.
I just saw it like they could have just been red or blue, or it could have been star and diamond. I just thought those were
Yeah.
notations, different notations.
Now, I did consider
Or they could have been the same. They
making
could
the
have just been
fake
literally the same.
walls. Well, I don't want them to be exactly the same. Like, I want to give the player some feeling of, oh, okay, this is going to do a thing. It's also interesting that you find no value in that block. I always move that block, but yeah, you're right. You don't need to.
Really?
I did play with the idea of making those invisible walls.
And time, speedrun complete.
Colored.
This is world record.
3 minutes.
Sorry.
5 times faster. So yeah, there's some interesting things going on here, but I'm trying to play with how much to show and how much to hide. So with those fake walls, the ones that go on the pressure plates, I think about having them immediately visible, so you can see there's a barrier here. But I also like the idea that parts of the level can open up and close up. And if you wanted to, you could just radically change the level. There's a lot you can do with a system like this.
Yeah. And honestly, it could be rebranded as literally anything. This could be bringing dinner to a cat. This could be like a
tidying toys away.
Tidying up toys, moving something to a door and kicking it out, getting it out of a location.
Trying to get your homework into your school bag.
That's the nice thing about puzzles is that a good many puzzles are independent of their system, of their theming. Now, puzzles that are dependent on the theming tend to be some of the most memorable and some of the best because they're made specifically for that game and for that branding. But it's not necessary for the puzzle to be in a certain vein, and you can see this a lot in Nintendo games and in like Zelda games in particular, where the puzzles are so specific to the genre and to what it's doing that they can be very interesting in that sense. Whereas something like Myst, for example, the puzzles are so independent that many of the puzzles have no bearing on the setting whatsoever.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of in board games where you get very theme-heavy games and very abstract games.
Yeah.
And occasionally you get one that sort of crosses the line a bit, like Tashkalar is very abstract but very heavily themed. But it's theme in a puzzle game is one of those things with how far do you want to lean into the aesthetic? That's really the question I'm asking here.
And how important is it to you as a designer?
So I guess what I was interested in with this project was, well, one, how to make a little puzzle game and teach people how to do it. But how to teach people, here's a new mechanic, and guide them into showing how it works, understanding the rules of the game without having to explain it to them. Like, I put in how to play for people who don't want to go through that. Yeah. And it's literally just an image. But I wanted people just to be able to press the button, press a few things, and go from there.
Interesting that how to play isn't on the options menu.
Nope. And that is because it didn't occur to me. I mean, I made a very important decision that is very well informed in things and stuff. Scratch my beard.
Yes, very important. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can always style these things out, but like, there's some things I did. Like with this puzzle is very simple, but there's enough space around it to show you, oh, there's more complexity coming. Oh, you have a subscribe bell. That's very fancy.
That's the button. I have a button that does that.
I like that bell.
I have a fun story about that, but let's finish talking about this first.
Okay. I mean, how would I... Would you like me to share my screen?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So if I go to... How do I do this? Just share screen too?
Mm-hmm.
Does that work?
It will in a moment.
Ooh. I have no hats of string. Bum. Ooh, fancy pants. Round of applause.
A lot easier than someone asking me to play a video. That was a nightmare. On last night's stream.
Okay,
yeah.
so what I can do is if I can go into my levels, I've got a level template, and this is how I start designing a level. And what we have is every level must have a player, a camera, space to restart. It's got a hidden options, hidden victory, hidden options menu, and I can just start painting. So I'll go over here and paint a level. La 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 la.
Okay, yeah. Tile maps are always fun.
Exactly. So I've got a tile map. The walls have collision and occlusion. It's good to go. What I usually do to start is I'll start by putting the goal somewhere, and then draw a path to that. So we'll take our goal, and I've got it snapping to grid, so it's nice and easy. Let's say we want to go over here. Great. And then I'll just draw a little path to that. I'll draw a little, draw a little path to that. And then the question starts being, okay, so what was the last thing I taught? And I have to know what was that level about. So in the last one, the thing I wanted to teach is doing things in a certain order. It's a lesson we've seen before, but I want you to plan ahead. So when you reach that level 9, which I can actually show you over here, when you reach level 9, you change dramatically, because the level before was just like, yeah, I mean, there are things hidden under things. That's the lesson, right?
Yeah.
When you got to here, you started talking your way through it, which is what I'm interested in. This is really in the prototype just to show people, look, with these simple rules, you can make quite fiendish puzzles. I wouldn't call this exceptionally fiendish, but it throws some people. And this was really just me saying, okay, so I've taught that. Now I want to teach. I've got these plus ones. At the time, I didn't have the previous plus one. And I want you to go through a certain area. So I wanted this little block off. So I drew these 3, and there has to be a reason why that can't be your second one. And that was the entire basis of the puzzle. Everything else just followed from there. So if we are making our brand new map, this is a J, because J the Kobold.
Yay!
J, I messed up. My handwriting is even bad in Godot. And honestly, we could just play the level from here.
Well, you couldn't.
No, like
not a whole lot doing on that.
No. It's pretty bad. And from there we can start doing things. And what I want to do is encourage people to start thinking in terms of puzzles. I mean, especially if you're making a puzzle game for a jam, to understand what the I guess the contract is. Let me just undo all this template stuff because I don't want every level to look like that. I'm just going to not save that one. And for me, really, there's a couple of key rules for puzzle making, and I'm kind of like finding these as I go along. But the first is I shouldn't have to explain to you what it does. Like when we open this level, I shouldn't have to have a piece of text that tells you what these blocks are. They should be designed in such a way that you can see it. So I've put these in a way that you can't move them. These can be moved. You clearly have to get that over here. There's a story being told here, or a question being asked, if you prefer.
I prefer, yeah, I do.
So a questionable story being told.
There you go. Perfect.
Nailed it. And then really it's just a question of, okay, so I'm going to start playing this through, and I realize I have to add this little bit here, otherwise you can never get that through. So it's you figure out the kind of question you want to make, ask yourself, is this written in a way that I'm guiding the player towards a solution, or at least get them thinking the same way? And is this actually doable? So play test it. It doesn't matter if there's multiple solutions. Like, I like this one, because it's the first time that people see it. It's like, oh, this is a weird pattern. Everyone does this differently. Everyone I've watched does this level differently. Oh. Lame. The continue button does work if you don't do it the way I just did. Let's try that again. So the way I do it is that. Everyone does this differently, and I kind of love that, because actually this isn't a puzzle. This is a tutorial level.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
see a big layout like that, and they go from there. Because I'm out of the way I'm tracking levels is means that you can't just jump in like that. From here, you go into this level. Again, very simple, and it's really not until you get to level 9 that we start really doing puzzles. Everything up to that point is just teaching you the language of the game.
Which is fine. I mean,
right.
The Portal is a game where every level is a tutorial level, right?
Exactly. Portal's a great example because you don't. I mean, in Portal 2, you don't even know about the blue and orange slime until you're about what 80% of the way through the game.
Something like that, yeah.
But like they don't give you the portal gun until you've solved your first few puzzles. Like they're building on the language you have, and really that's what this is. So every puzzle should be fair. Every puzzle should make the player feel smart, not stupid. Like they shouldn't solve it by mistake, or if it is a mistake, it's a happy like, oh, I can do it.
Yeah. Give the player an apostrophe.
Exactly. An epiphany apostrophe.
That's
I also like that this level is the first one that stumps people. You can go quite fiendish with this. And, you know, if we wanted to, we could add a whole bunch of mechanics. We could put in conveyor belts, we could put in portals, we could put in rotators, we could put in...
So what do you do? How do you... I want to see you solve this level. I'm a little bit floored on how you... Because you said that you used that one block, and I'm just like, how and why? Like, just genuine
Why is a good question. Let me move this one out of the way first. La la la. Thank you, Chuki. Okay. And before I forget, let me just get this dude in there too, because as you pointed out, this is a good one to move early. If you move it late, it gets annoying. Honestly, I think I do it this way just because I don't like having these not used. It's just that simple.
You know what? Valid. You know what? That's valid.
But it does mean you have to move this over here.
Ah.
Otherwise, you can't use this block.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why I designed this bit. Because this is my favorite bit.
See, I assumed that was a red herring. I like... when you do
that's the beauty of a puzzle, right? Is the correct solution is the one that gets you there, the one that makes you feel smart. I put that there because for me the level was unsolvable because it didn't occur to me that you didn't have to use that block. And that's fine. You don't have to have the perfect solution when you're building a puzzle. You have to follow the rules of has the player learned everything they need? I want one major lesson per level. Yep. I want one mechanic introduced per level. I don't want to introduce 2 or 3 mechanics that go. And is this solvable in at least one way?
Right.
And as long as it is, it doesn't matter if the player finds another solution.
And just because I've mentioned it a few times, and I don't know if people are familiar with the term, a red herring is a distraction. A red herring is something in a puzzle that you do not need and that does not need to be there. The way I solved the puzzle, that block in the middle and that top right piece were unused, and focusing on them would pull me away from the actual solution, which is a way of designing more difficult puzzles, is to add things and have the player first need to figure out what is actually relevant to the puzzle, then figure out how to solve it, and then reassess later on if the other parts are essential if they get stumped on that.
And it's one of those things that, I mean, it comes from detective fiction, right? You find a clue that's a red herring that doesn't actually relate to anything. It's just put in there to draw it out a little.
Wasn't that originally a Shakespeare thing?
He might well have been.
Not Shakespeare. Sherlock Holmes.
They're basically the same person.
Some old British guy, I don't know.
For me, I actually don't know that I like red herrings in puzzle games because they feel cheap. Like for me, a puzzle should be when I'm playing a puzzle game and I spend 20 minutes on something that looks clearly important and is just put in there to slow me down. That feels to me like they're just wasting my time. However, many people disagree. They're wrong, but they disagree.
I'm inclined to disagree just because that sort of deception can be for more difficult puzzles, that can be a good way of making the difficulty. What's the word I'm looking for?
Orange.
Yes, for making the difficulty orange.
It's okay. Here's my problem with it. The difficulty doesn't come from the puzzle. The difficulty comes from being lied to.
That's a fair point. I see your point now.
However, there are certain puzzle games where that is part of the puzzle, like figuring out who's telling the truth, what information you can trust. Like if you're building much more of a sort of murder mystery style game, there was a game by Inkle recently, Overboard, I think it was,
Okay.
that I actually disliked intensely. But basically, you're on a cruise ship. Your husband has been pushed into the water. There's a big murder mystery, and you've got to get away with it because you killed him.
Oh, okay. Reasonable.
And you've got to go through the story, and you can go through it different ways. And I actually just didn't enjoy the game. Like, it was very well done. I wouldn't say it's not worth your while. It wasn't for me, because for me that's not so much a puzzle as trying to find a speed run through the narrative.
Have you played What the Golf?
I have not. Have you played What the Golf?
I haven't. It's fantastic.
Good talk.
And it's also
sorry.
Well, touche. But, it's
yeah. I'm going to shut my screen down.
Right. But it's relevant to this because What the Golf is a game that is rife with. I would call it a puzzle game. The general concept is it's a golf game, but things get weird. I think that's the best elevator pitch for it. It's a golf game, but things get weird. And you need to figure out what your goals are. Like you start with a dude at a golf tee, getting ready for a stroke, and then you hit the button, and all of a sudden, like he starts flying off, or the club starts going over there instead of the ball. Like just something else happens, and the first thing you need to figure out is, okay, what is counting as a ball and what is counting as a hole in this level, because it changes from level to level. In one level, there's a golfer at a driving range with a bucket of balls next to him. You make your first stroke, and every single ball in the bucket flies out. You only need to sink one of them. It's just the that's what's happening here. Okay, and from a certain perspective, the game is not an execution game of can you get the ball in the hole. The actual game is a puzzle game of what counts as a ball and what counts as a hole in this level. I need to figure out what the game wants of me first, and then accomplish it.
And that's fully legit, because that's the language of the game is very clear. The essential experience of discovery. Exactly. If the ball is X, how do I play? If the ball is Y, how do I play? I think if you're doing something like a Sokoban clone, like Tukanaban, you can introduce all kinds of fun and say again.
What did you call it?
A Sokoban clone.
Okay. Got it.
You can put in all kinds of fun and wacky things. Like you could put in, I don't know, catapults or pinball buffers or whatever you want. But you can't break the contract. And the contract is these things in this kind of game are always going to behave in a predictable way. If you push the block, it will move one square. If you stand on a minus, it'll open at least one thing on the wall. If you stand on a plus, it'll close something on the wall somewhere. The black blocks never count as a goal. The goal is never going to move away from you. In this style of game, it's here is a closed system, find your way through it. And part of the fiction of these games is there's one way of doing it. And actually that's not true, as we've demonstrated. I'm kind of interested to see when this course goes live, which should be in a few days. How
by golly, do you have a link to this course in case anybody wants to see it?
I don't, because it's not published yet.
Okay.
But I've linked to my site, if that helps.
You had a chance.
It's not done yet. I mean, I haven't actually announced that there's a course until today. So.
Well then.
But you can have a link to my site if you want it. Blap.
That?
I put it over in the YouTube's.
Yeah, then YouTube saw that you put a link in, and then you're not a mod, so it didn't. No one saw it.
Oh, so I just send it to you instead.
No,
Yay, Jay did it.
yeah.
Um, So yeah, okay. I guess why I don't like red herrings, because this is interesting. Because a lot of people do.
Mm.
And if you want a kind of trolley experience from your game, it's fine. Like that's a legit player experience. To me, as I said earlier, the game is the player experience, and the experience of a good puzzle game for me is not frustration. It's not I feel stupid. A puzzle game should make you feel smart, and it should give you the tools to do that. Now, there might be puzzles that you really struggle with. The worst puzzle games are stuff like Candy Crush, where the first 50 or 100 levels, you feel smart, and then they are simply not doable unless you spend money.
Yeah, which
And
is
that's
honestly,
predatory.
you have to admit that is an interesting design challenge. It's wretched, but it's still an interesting design challenge. Is how can we make this appear to be solvable, but not actually? How do we make this appear to be solvable, but not but make people pay money on it? That's
and
a different design challenge. I saw that on a old game called Cut the Rope, where you try to feed candy to a
yes,
dragon. And the Cut the Rope 1, fantastic game. Highly recommend it. Cut the Rope 2, absolutely terrible, because you can tell how much time and effort and design was put into making the game require money to be spent.
and there's a lot of predatory stuff that can go into games like that. And
Yeah.
it's not just puzzle games. But puzzle games are very
They're prone to it.
thank you. That's the bunny. They lie down for it. Um, things like the Skinner box mechanics, things like lots of particles and sound effects. Now, we do have particles and sound effects, but we only put them in very briefly. It's like a second and a half when you've done the victory thing. What we don't do it is every time you do 5 levels, we'll have a little loot box open up and it'll have this amazing opening thing. And just think, you've got this one for free, but if you'd spent just $1, you could have had 2 more, and the third one always has a chance of a secret magic thing. Like, no,
Now,
that's cruel.
That's cruel. Well, okay. Let me clarify something. I want to actually let's talk about this. That's cruel if and only if that is there to drive monetization. I would argue that that's perfectly valid in a game that is not monetized. In fact, I would say it's actually very good because it creates a moment of tension and creates a tier of replayability. Monster Hunter. Every time you kill a monster, what you get is random. You might not get the power you need. You have a percentage chance based on it, and that is
reward.
functionally a
I'm
loot
with
box.
you. It's fine. I'm talking specifically about very sparkly reward, but you only get one of them for free, and the next 2 would be better. Like gating content like that, and using lots of tricks to sort of hook your brain onto the dopamine rush of big box opening.
But if the dopamine rush for big box opening isn't monetized, then is it still an ethically
if
a
it's
bad
not
thing?
gated and we're not hooking you on to do something, then I've less of a problem with it. It can still be very addictive, but
you're right. And is that inherently bad? Is the thing, because the other example I wanted to bring up versus Monster Hunter, because Monster Hunter really interestingly parallels loot box mechanics without having any of the concerns about it. The other one is Xenoblade Chronicles 2,
which I've not played.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has an internal gacha system with rare drops, with starred mechanics, and it is a completely paid game that you cannot spend money to get more pulls for. It has a gacha game inside of it with all of the pomp and circumstance in it. And the only way to get more gacha stuff is you don't get more gacha stuff. You get the stuff from the story, and you can farm some extra drops if you go out into the world.
That I have less of a problem with. If nothing else,
but it hits all the notes.
But
it hits all the notes.
I would argue that putting that in this game would make the game worse.
In this game, sure. But my point is that your statement is potentially contradictory, though, because like let me say this. Your statement is not a statement about game design; it's a statement about ethics, and I think that's an important distinction.
I agree with that completely.
Okay, I think it's an important distinction to make, because at first glance,
I'm speaking specifically about. No, I think it is a bad way to make games from an ethical meaning of the word bad. I'm speaking specifically about gating content to force people to pay for it or they can't play the game.
Right. Okay.
I'm not talking about a reward system that hooks you and keeps you wanting to play. Obviously, if you do too many of those, then your game will suffer or your player will feel compelled to play even when they don't enjoy it. There's a point where these systems can make you play the game.
The systems can collapse on themselves, yeah.
Well, it becomes actually Skinner boxes work great, but they can make the game feel very aggressive.
They can.
Like I'm not having fun. I'm just playing. It was a game like that I played recently where I just like I've been playing this for 2 hours and I hate the thing. Why am I doing this? I'll just play for another couple of minutes because there's a reward coming in a minute. Like drip feeding that reward system can work. It's not inherently a good game design either. Like it can backfire. But I think the moment you start using it in that very sort of toxic free to play, the free to play isn't inherently bad, but that very toxic loot driven. I mean, I think Candy Crush is ethically troubling for me. Like I'm trying to put this in a way that's not going to make me legally in trouble. It feels predatory when I play it. Your mileage may vary and all the rest of it. I really enjoyed the first 100 levels, and then I was like, what am I doing with this? Like, I'm not giving you money for this. I'm not doing that. I'm not buying a purple unicorn lollipop or whatever it is. I'm just not doing it.
But when you do if you put the exact same mechanics into a game that is not monetized, then all of a sudden, all those sparkly bits, all those shiny bits, all that excitement for the upcoming reward is actually just a reward.
At that point, it becomes game juice.
Yeah, exactly.
But I will take your point about my statement is not about game design, it's about ethics. And I will turn it around.
Oh?
I would suggest that any game that is technically good but is unethical should be considered a bad game. As a game designer, okay. My biases. I trained most of my life in theatre. I worked as a director for a bit. I have a BA and MA in drama and drama education. And my brain is very much geared around the idea that storytelling is not just a fun thing, but a fundamental thing. It's how we shape our reality. It's how we shape our understanding of our reality. It's how we raise our young. It's how we tell stories about who we are politically and philosophically and all the rest of it. When a game abuses that, you can get some very dangerous things. And personally, addictive behavior kind of dangerous. I think not taking the ethical implications of game design seriously is kind of doing humans and the industry a disservice. And it can lead to things like, well, we'll just, hide a cryptocurrency miner in your game. It's fine.
That was Cooking Mama, wasn't it? Yeah. Sorry.
There was a couple of them.
That's not a hypothetical.
No, it happened. Like this is not a slippery slope argument. It's if you think it's just a game, I don't have to be ethical, you get real problems. Yeah, advertising on those kinds of mobile games is pretty bad. And I have lots of thoughts about cryptocurrencies in games anyway. Like I don't get it. Like I understand the thing. I just don't understand why everyone's excited about it. But plenty of people are, and plenty of smarter people than me. But it is really easy to abuse right now.
Oh yeah, that's the point.
That totally happened.
Yeah, that happened. Cooking Mama, which was licensed to a third party for the Nintendo Switch, was making the Switches run extremely hot, and people were trying to figure out why, and they found that it was mining cryptocurrency on your Nintendo Switch while the game was being played, and then
there was a game on Steam a couple of months back that did the same thing.
But yeah, but
people looked at the net traffic and realized what was happening. Like,
yeah, but a game on Steam hits differently than a
very true
beloved franchise entry that put onto the Nintendo Switch, onto a console like that just kind of hits different, Because Cooking Mama has been around for what? Like that was originally a DS DS game, wasn't it?
I think so.
So that franchise has been around for a hot minute.
Yep. So yeah, I see this when we start talking about game design, and I realize we're sort of gone tangential here, or about movies or about any kind of storytelling where people sort of try and separate the ethical implications. And I don't think you can. Like, I don't think you have to agree with my ethics, but I think we have to just, well, I believe we should accept that the two things are tied. Like, I don't know that there's an ethically neutral approach to game design. But that's just me. I mean, I'm right, but it's just me.
That's an interesting stance. That is an interesting stance. Like, what are the inherent ethics of and biases that you work with as a designer without realizing it?
I mean, this is
that might be
trying to identify your own inherent biases is interesting, right? And it occurred to me as well when I was trying to put this game together. Like, I am talking about things like I want the player to always feel like they have the information they need. I want the player to not feel like there's a big gotcha moment. I want the player to feel like everything is here. You don't have to look elsewhere. You don't have to go online to find a puzzle. Those can be fun, like Secret World with their ARG stuff. That can be great, researching some obscure painter you never heard about to solve a puzzle in the game. But I wanted you to feel like everything is laid out in front of you. You can solve this. It is possible. I haven't put anything impossible. You don't have to buy any things. And honestly, a lot of that comes from my views on ethics in games. Like, that's kind of inseparable from me.
Very interesting.
Right, weird little tangent there.
No,
but
it's
do you guys like pushing boxes?
It's very relevant to pushing boxes, yes.
I used to have big debates when I was professoring with people about, can we keep politics out of video games? It's like, I mean, kind of, but not really, because the people making the games have politics, and if you don't question them, you just right, like
you can keep specific politics out of video games, but a game itself is going to have some sort of political opinion baked into the assumptions that the developers make.
Well, the student I was talking about how in this halcyon golden age that he was referring to, the most popular games were Call of Duty, and they weren't political. I'm like, in what? How?
Oh, well, that's certainly
they reflected his politics, so he had never questioned them. Therefore, they're not political.
Oh, they weren't political because they didn't take issue with them, so therefore that was what they assumed the normal
political
was.
Being a sort of external thing that gets added as opposed to the. So really, an ideology, and I'm
so
totally
really what you're saying is that Disco Elysium is not a political game.
I'm trying to see if I can devil avocado this. Yes, Disco Elysium is not a political game because you're not running for election in it.
There it is. Perfect. Follows.
Yeah, nailed it. Nailed it.
yeah. Like,
so yeah,
even something as abstracted as Minecraft, it's like, hey, wait a minute, is this colonialism? Hey, wait a minute, is this taking a native land and reducing it into
that's the thing. The politics can sort of just emerge from the system as well. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a political viewpoint. It's your ideology. It's how you frame the word. It's again, from the story point of view, it's the grand narrative, the narrative of everything, right? The story of what meaning is and who we are. And it's okay. You're allowed to know you have a bias. And you can work with it, or you can try and counter it, or you can try and filter it down, or you can try and explain why you think it's the right bias. But to pretend you don't have one,
to pretend that it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, it leads to problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember one student a few years back, a game design student, who asked me, "What are your thoughts on forced diversity in games?" And I just spluttered water all over my keyboard because, I mean, the amount of hot button trigger words in that for me were huge.
That too.
And it was trying to get to what he was saying. It was like, my view was, there's almost 8 billion of us. There's room for everybody. What do you mean forced diversity? Don't play that game if you don't want to.
Exactly. And I've heard people make that argument, and it always falls flat as soon as I mention play another game. Like then none of their arguments make any sense. It's like, like, okay, that game exists. It's clearly not for you. And you also see that in, what you see that in, like, not exactly, but you know what you absolutely see that same type of thing in?
Mm.
Pokemon. Every single generation that comes out, people say, "Wow, why isn't there an edgier Pokemon game? Why isn't there a Pokemon game that's more, I don't, some level of edgy slash brutal slash doing something that's
You're imprisoning
and
cute little creatures and forcing them to fight to the death in gladiatorial combat. How edgy do you want it?
and the answer is always that it's not for you anymore, and it doesn't have to be. Like, it's
Yep.
like you. I'm not going to say grew out of it, because that implies that somehow that it's an improvement to have that mindset, which I think is inherently flawed. But that is a it's like you changed into somebody who doesn't appreciate that, and the
Mm.
game is still made for the people who do. Like,
I think there's also an interesting, like, counter to, well, not counter, there's an interesting corollary to the whole, if you don't want to play a game that has what you think is forced diversity, play something else.
Mhm.
Is, okay, so you want to play this game and you don't feel represented. How do you think everyone who isn't a cis white male feels when they want to play a
Also
big
valid.
game?
Also valid.
Like, that's kind of the conversation we need to have. Like, I mean, people had lost their minds a little bit when Lara Croft first came out. I say came out. The game came out. I don't know if she's out of the closet or not. I mean, I'm not going to out her. It's entirely up to her. But there's room for everybody.
Real quick, I want to address something in chat. Saying, I know a fan game we can play as Team Rocket, and I think someone else mentioned that there are edgy Pokemon games that exist. Like, yes, in fan productions there are. But what's interesting is I've seen many ROM hacks and fan games that are like that are Pokemon but edgy. I've never seen anybody actually release a game that is like Pokemon but edgy and be successful. I've never seen someone actually
I mean,
launch that type of game, like as a finished copy, as a
so
finished
cards
game.
on the table. Pokemon came out when I was 17, so I was just too old for it. Like, I remember
Mm-hmm.
Digimon, and I remember what was the other one? Tamagotchi.
Mm-hmm.
But when Pokemon came out, I was just slightly too old for it, so it wasn't part of my childhood. Um, but it occurs to me, if you make it too edgy, are you not just running a Roman gladiatorial slave camp? Like, at a certain point, like, if you're going to lean into that, I think it really works because it's got that Nintendo innocence and cartooniness
Yeah.
and and all that business. I think if you want to make that edgy, you kind of remove the Nintendo from Pokemon. You just end up with Poke the Man.
Um, Pokemon Coliseum XD Gale of Darkness is an official game, but it is not made by the same team as any of the main series games. That is made by a completely different studio in a completely different continent. Sorry, just addressing chat on that one.
But it is an official game. Like,
Yeah,
that
it
is a
is.
point.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is.
Nintendo tends to edge away from that kind of, not always, but they tend to edge away from that kind of edginess because they're still, like, leaning into the heavy cartoony family friendly thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, same.
Sure.
just to call myself out there.
Sure. I mean, I outed Laura Croft, so
There you
go
go.
nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite one of those recently was the Sandman Netflix thing coming out, and this big backlash against Desire being trans. And it basically took Neil Gaiman saying, "Have you guys read the comics? Because Desire was always trans. Like, they are referred to as they and male and female and whatever else they want to be. Like,
I
this is
mean,
not new."
not to get too much into it, but like that's always been a thing. People complaining when in the Hunger Games when an explicitly African character was made portrayed by an African American actor. Like that's just a thing that people have opinions about. Like,
Yeah. Bandwagons.
so that, yeah.
But
I
yeah,
rolled
there are edgier.
Carmageddon. Hold on. Carmageddon had a Super Nintendo release, didn't it?
Did it?
I feel like it did.
I mean, I played it on the Atari ST, but
I could be wrong, but I feel like it
they
did.
have made edgier games. Like they're not pathologically opposed to it.
Carmageddon 64 for the N64. It looks like.
I mean, you know what I would love to see? Do you remember the Telltale game, The Wolf Among Us, or The Wolf Within, or whatever it's called?
I didn't play it, but I've heard of it.
I kind of want to see Pikachu as that very grizzled, quasi-supernatural detective with a drinking problem and a temper, trying to solve a murder in the Pokemon universe.
Well,
I know there was
yeah, that's
Detective Pikachu, but like
Mhm.
actual like Gumshoe, Dashiell Hammett style.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting. You know, make a noir game out of it.
I mean, I don't think it'd work with that character because how do you Pika? Like, it just doesn't work.
I don't know. I think it sounds fantastic. I'm in. I'm sold. Let's do it.
Oh, I'm gonna get sued by Nintendo.
Ah. We're on my channel. I mean,
That's
so make sure that you hit that donation button so that when my channel gets shut down by Nintendo.
for Jake's legal fees. Hey, maybe you could hire Legal Eagles. That'd be an interesting video.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic. No, but seriously, that is, you know, a very interesting discussion. You know, it is
Yeah, sorry, I went kind of weird and tangentially and a bit soapboxy there, but
quite all right.
there's
Quite all right.
there's a game about a bird pushing boxes, so that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I tried to warn Jade in advance. This is a prototype for a course, so only 9
Mhm.
levels. But yeah, I'm quite happy with how we've got the game juice working and the controls working. So we did play with holding the button down. My business partner Mikey asked for it, so I immediately put it in, and he immediately regretted it because he kept overshooting, and it meant that almost every third time he went to a box, he'd have to stop and reset the game because he would just zoom past.
Mm-hmm.
How do we go from puzzle game to edgy Pokemon? Well, that is the puzzle, Sapphire.
Yes.
And as you know, puzzle is a question.
So here's an interesting thing I just noticed.
Yeah.
I can bump against this box. See,
Correct.
and the model goes bonk, 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 bonk.
Yeah.
I cannot do that against any walls.
Correct.
I also noticed that if I pivot your icon back and forth very quickly, it looks very neat.
It's kind of Rorschach, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So the way these blocks are working, for those of you interested in the game mechanics, is we're not using any physics bodies in this game. I saw someone had written a Circle Band style game in Godot as a little tutorial, and they made everything kinematic bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And then they moved the kinematic body in code. They say the position is now this. And you're not supposed to do that with physics bodies. You're supposed to move physics bodies with physics. If you move them with position, it can actually mess up the game's physics system.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of to make the whole thing with areas, so what's happening is the toucan here has 4 little rays in each direction. And when you try to move, it'll say, okay, first, am I already moving? No? Great. Is there a terrain piece in the direction I'm heading? If there is, you can't move. If not, go ahead. When you get to the box, that's not happening. You're moving. The box is detecting you're entering the area. It's finding your position, its position, and then moving away. But what happens when there's a wall there? It sends a signal to you saying you can't go that way, stop moving and go back to your last position. And that's making that little bonk, bonk, bonk thing.
I like it. I like the bonk. I like the bonk a lot.
I like the bonk too. I actually made the area on the box slightly smaller, specifically so you can see the bonk.
That's fantastic. Bonk, 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 bonk.
Welcome to Bonking with Jake. No, terrible video title. No,
Hey,
no,
wait a
no.
minute.
Regretting my life choices. YouTube demonetized. Nope.
How dare.
That could be the Patreon version you do. Hey, we got a subscription out of that one.
Oh no, that's when I hit the button. I hit the button because I figured that'd be a funny moment to push it.
So yeah, that's my views on puzzle design and trying to make an invisible tutorial. I was very proud about the fact that every time you went to a new level, you immediately went, okay, I'm being funneled this way. Those look like they can move. These are being used as a little arrow to show me, hey, this bit's important.
So what I was initially planning on doing
Mm.
was we ended up just kind of going through it. Pardon me. We just kind of ended up going through it and just having a good time. But my initial plan was to go through it as though I were a QA tester, and actually
Yep.
talk, just say my entire brain thinks, and just go through the entire process of saying, this is what I noticed, this is what I'm feeling, this is how I what I'm establishing.
Oh, the Liz Lerman technique, very nice.
But
I
then
think I noticed. I wonder.
then I just ended up defaulting into streamer brain mode. It's like, okay, no, I need to play a game and say words. That's what's important. But that's just a danger of the business of falling into streamer brain.
It's a fun conversation for me. I'm hoping the other people's enjoyed it. But I don't think you need to apologize for that. Plus, you did actually give your thoughts while you're playing it.
Ooh.
Also, you're a lot better than this, my business partner, who is very confidently wrong on almost every level.
Confidently wrong is the best kind of wrong.
On the last one, it's like, I've got this. Oh no.
Easy game, let's go.
Well, in fairness, the other levels are pretty easy. Like, this level is not entirely challenging.
So, should be this one here. When I saw this, my brain thought of Legend of Zelda puzzles. How the classic Zelda games always had, the pushing block puzzles that were not really puzzles but were. So that's why my approach was not clear. Like I see what you were doing when you were, when you were showing me how you did it. Like you clear the path and then push it down. That makes a lot of sense. My brain was thinking on diagonals. I was thinking, okay, so let's go out of, I need to get this out of the way. How do I attack this line? How do I attack this line? Like my brain is thinking on the diagonals on all of these. I think I even pushed this here and took another path elsewhere. And that was just because
but I love that because
Zelda style of brain minds.
I mean, full disclosure, when I made this level, I was like, okay, I want to put these in a chessboard pattern. Is it solvable? That was it. That was the entire plan for the level. So I like the fact that everyone has their own solution to that. It's like a little personality test. This one, I decided if I'm going to put this little box there, because it looks very much like a crate, so I'm just going to put it in the doorway so you have to go through it and see what it does.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And this one was just like, hey, look, I can hide these under things.
Did that actually come from iteration? Did you actually come up with that puzzle style because of testing? Because of saying that just kind of happened?
I came up with it because of this one. The difficulty spike between this and 2 levels back was just too much for some people. Some people took 15, 20 minutes on this level. And the reason wasn't that they couldn't do it. The reason was I'm adding too many things in one go. I'm hiding blocks under things. I've got plus and minus blocks. And there's a specific order you have to do this in.
Yeah. There's a lot going on.
Specifically, you can't do far right goal, center goal, left goal, because if you do that the center goal first, you're stuck.
Yeah. It collapses. As well it should. I mean, that's a fair point for it to collapse on. Makes a lot of sense.
So that's the point where I went in and added an extra level on feedback. And it was one of those situations where it felt obvious to me, and it wasn't. So yeah, another good tip with puzzle games: get people who haven't played it to play test it.
Oh yeah, in general, that's a good idea because otherwise your difficulty scaling can be all just shot.
Uh, Honestly, get people who haven't played it and don't tell them anything about it. And this is true with any game, because otherwise you end up with systems where you think the game is obvious and people don't know why they're playing or what to do and how and what the things mean.
Yeah, yeah, because you can get
This is a
lost in the
purely
sauce in your own
hypothetical
programming.
case that's never happened.
No, really. Gosh, I remember when Blood Bowl first came out, the PC version of Blood Bowl.
Yep.
And
That thing was impenetrable.
that was it was impressive is what it was.
It was
And just
amazing. It was impenetrable.
it's like an absolute masterclass in conveyance just from the other side of how to fail spectacularly at conveyance.
They were so focused on getting the original tabletop
Mechanics.
wargaming Blood Bowl experience down, because that's what it is. They took a wargaming system and put American football into it. That some reason they copied in the impenetrable rule set that it comes with, and then it will take hours of study to get through, and you need rulers and weeks of play to get good at the game. Me and my friends all played Goblins just because the random chance was so high. It doesn't matter what you do, you might win.
Honestly, though, if you've played Warhammer, you'll know that that's the target audience. Those people love impenetrable rules, anyways. But what I was referring to is if you're on the pitch, is that the right word?
Yeah, sure.
If you're on the
I'm an expert in sports things, so absolutely.
Yes, excellent. I'll take your word for it. If you're on the sports field, I want you to guess in the first release of it what the escape button did.
I used to know this. Wasn't it something like change player?
The escape.
It was something
button.
really weird.
It was camera controls. Hitting escape
That's
shifted you from
right.
overhead view to from top down view to isometric.
Oh, it was very interesting actually. I watched a streamer about a year back who streamed exclusively GTA 5, and someone challenged him to play all of the Grand Theft Auto games from the first one, which I remember when I was an undergrad back in the 90s. And he couldn't play it. Like it took him like 10 minutes to understand that you drove the car with the cursor arrows and controller's fire. And like, why would they make this decision? It's like, because WSAD hadn't been invented as a standard yet. That's what games were. So one of the interesting things with games is the reason we put the cursors in WSAD is I'm so used to WSAD moving things, but we got a couple of people who immediately went to the cursor because it's a puzzle game. And
I tried that first. I expected it to be that, but I tested using the cursor before I tried that.
Yeah. And it's specifically because with games like this, it's especially with a puzzle game, which can appeal to people who don't play a lot of games. Look out for those hidden assumptions you have.
Right.
What was it? Ken Robinson calls it the tyranny of common sense. The assumptions you don't question, which goes back to the political thing, right? Like the things you think about how a game works might only work because you have a lot of vocabulary with these kinds of games. Let someone else play it who doesn't and see how they fare.
And see how it goes. And there's a lot of assumptions that can be made that should be made. I mean, call me crazy for assuming that escape should bring up a menu. I mean that might
escape should escape.
Clearly. Where was I going with this?
Canada.
Good call. But there's not. Settling brain thinks. But there are times where breaking convention is going to be necessary for telling your story and designing what you were working on. Like, you may need to do that.
Actually, you know what's really bad for this? Sorry, I just interrupted. Carry on.
I mentioned this. Like, this is actually going to be strange because I'm going to mention this like 3 days in a row. But Ghost 1.0 is a platformer where your jump button is one of the triggers, is R1.
Ooh.
And at first that sounds like wretched, right? You hear that and you go, no, that's not how platformers work. That's not how that's not how the established style of creating games is, like that. But playing the game, it makes sense because you need one hand on the left analog stick to move, and one hand on the right, and your thumb on the right analog stick, so that you have 360-degree aiming.
Mm.
And if you want the player to be able to jump while moving and shooting, then the jump button can't be A, which would be the expected, because A would mean that you have to take your thumb off of the aiming stick.
Yep, that makes
So
sense.
that's what I was getting at, is that assumption, that default rule set, that understanding is inherent. It does not work with the game. The game has a very specific button map that it needs because of the type of game that it is.
Mm.
And that assumption, I hated it at first. I'm like, why is this here? This is terrible. This is wretched. This is absolutely, throwing me off. And then I actually, learned it, and I'm like, okay, no, this has to be here. There's no other way they could have done this. There's no place they could have put that button and be able to, and for the controls to work, for the controls to do the challenges that the game clearly is intending for its core functionality to require.
See, I have a almost polarized example of again GTA 5, and I have a love-hate relationship with GTA, especially GTA 5. Not least of which, hey guys, maybe don't make me actively participate in a torture scene. I don't want to. They do a lot of things very, very well. You know what they don't do well is their control system.
You know what? I'm going to I am actually going to play the devil's avocado here. That if that game's not for you, then you don't have to play it. We had that discussion earlier, and we agreed upon that.
That is very true, and that is an excellent point.
I firmly believe that games are a good way to explore uncomfortable topics if that's what the audience wants. And you could very easily make the argument that there should be more of a warning about it, and that you shouldn't buy the game without knowing that's part of the experience. But yeah, I think it's perfectly valid for that experience to be there.
Well, it's interesting because the experience changes radically from time to time. So it's sometimes you're not aware it's coming. Most of that game plays as a very sort of tongue-in-cheek, slightly slapstick, violence is funny thing, and then you're actively feeling uncomfortable with your own violence, which, there's a whole spectrum of things. But what I find interesting is the control system is so bad because every vehicle controls differently.
Oh.
Or things like, okay,
but it's a game
if you're swimming on the
vehicles.
surface, one button will climb into a vehicle. But if you're not quite on the surface, it'll dive. So I remember with my business partner, Mikey, I'm trying to take him through a little heist mission we can do together. And we're doing a stealth run, and we're going to escape on a boat. And we're going to do it before we get seen. And we spent 2 minutes jumping in and out of water around a boat, splashing while people looked at us. Like, the control system is so bizarrely, like, on some vehicles, the right trigger will be accelerate, on some it'll be fire, on some it'll be something else. It's like, it's so bizarrely inconsistent that every time someone gets in a vehicle, the first thing that they say is, what do all the buttons do?
That's interesting. Now, you could make the argument that would be realistic of different vehicles controlling differently with between boats and helicopters, but that's not a fun argument to make. That doesn't make the game better. That doesn't make the game more interesting.
I suspect the reason might be because the teams are so big that different teams are working on different systems over vastly different amount of time.
Yeah.
So Team C will say, okay, so we're going to map... what's a good example? More power to the rotors to the right trigger. Which is fine, except on a motorbike, right trigger is, I think it's fire? Like,
it's completely independent.
I think it might be, the sheer size of the thing is acting against it. Like, they didn't, that's...
Hold on, I have to do a bit with this. Wow, it sounds like they could have really benefited from having a solid game design document. And if you're interested in knowing how to make a good game design document, there's another video on this channel that was just made this week about how to make a proper game design document. I highly recommend that video.
That's where I was going to go with this. They needed a game design duck. They needed a game design duck, and they didn't have a strong enough duck. It was foul. I'm not sorry.
Yeah, no, and yeah, other games I can think of that have had similar issues. That makes a lot of sense, though. It's an easy. I don't want to say it's an easy thing to overlook, but it's an easy problem to have. Wait a minute.
Especially when you're working on such a big project for so long, and it becomes second nature to you because it's all you're doing for 80 hours a week.
And it's easy to assume. Yeah, interesting. It's easy to assume that everybody else is having the same.
We had an example about a year and a half back. We tried to kickstart a course on a 3D magnetic racing game. So a Wipeout style game. Except, unlike Wipeout, this actually modeled the physics. Wipeout is actually an on-rails racer, so the camera's tied to the track, and your craft will sort of go around the track. We did it so the track actually repels you, and it was very much like driving a speedboat. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I put the prototype for people to play it, and nobody could get around the first corner. Because they hadn't built up expertise of driving a magnetic speedboat 800 miles an hour and then trying to corner.
And really, that's on them.
Right, and I'm like, but you just need to use the air brake on the inside track and then the outer brake here, and they're like, what?
Well, yeah, no,
what are all of those buttons? It's like, but they're there. You just have to air brake and accelerate.
This is what I was talking about before with Blood Bowl and getting lost in the sauce, where you are focused, where you are so internal to the game that you know how the stuff works, to the point where it seems natural to you. And and then you step outside, and like, I guarantee you that when Blood Bowl was in development, the entire team was just used to escape being camera controls and F11 being a menu. Like that was just a granted. That was just a given, because they had been on the.
Actually, I believe in the first Blood Bowl came out, the entire team was trying to finish it as quickly as possible, so that Games Workshop didn't sue them, because they'd released a clone of Blood Bowl that was basically the same thing without their logo, and Games Workshop said, we either take you to court or you make our game.
You know, that does sound very Games Workshop, I got to admit.
It does
better, though. They've got. And so here's what, actually, just because I've been staring at this map, while we're talking for the past forever, I have a question. Why is this not beveled?
That is an excellent question. So originally when we made the prototype, and I'm not doing this in the course, I had 2 floor tiles. One for squares underneath the hidden floors, the hidden walls. That was it.
That was it? Oh, okay. So that's just a lazy
originally I thought it'd be a fun piece of marking, but like, that little wall that appears when you put the block on goal number 2? You can't notice that this is beveled. So when I realized that nobody noticed except for those 2 next to each other, I thought, let's just get rid of that entirely. Like, nobody has noticed that the little loop on the top right has 2 non-beveled squares as well.
Oh, I did. But this one does not.
It does. You just can't tell because the other things around it are...
That one is not the sharp corner. That one is beveled.
I'll soon fix that.
So,
but in the course, I got rid of it. There's just a floor and a wall.
Fair enough. I mean, this is just such a minor thing that I just noticed, and it's like, okay, 7 out of 10, too many bevels.
I thought it'd be like a fun little thing to show, like, this is where the wall goes. And it turned out it just looked like a graphical glitch.
Gotcha. You know the 7 out of 10 meme joke, right?
Yeah.
Too much water.
So here's a question: should those hidden walls be visible barriers?
So, I think that's actually a very interesting question, and you could
I agree.
2 ways you can go about it. Because on one hand, it forces exploration and experimentation, which I think is a good thing. Although you often don't necessarily consider that because of the red herring aspect that you dissented to earlier. But not knowing what these
Exploring,
do
I
until you,
like.
yeah. But I was sort of caught off when, yeah, when it was that one down there.
Yeah. When you moved it was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, we can go back and clip my reaction because when I came here, I was like, oh, that's interesting,
Mhm.
because that caught me off. Now, I would if you had given me all that information, I would not have been caught out. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is honestly
Although in this
a
particular
discussion point.
case, there would be no barrier there. I guess I could put little like walls and little emitters on the side. Um, I'm
Oh, there's a
genuinely
bug.
torn on this one.
Actually, I think I just found a bug. Okay, so what happens with it when I hit the right arrow key here?
It will open. It is a bug. You're quite right. I actually know about this bug.
Oh.
It's because that little pressure plate has an area that is large enough that it's not disconnecting in time for when the player hits it.
Ah,
So the crate is on it, it's triggered. You push the crate out the way, it thinks, okay, I'm empty now.
fair enough.
But you
It's
need
just
that
a
gap
minor
in
thing I
between.
noticed.
No.
But
We had some
anyways,
interesting bugs.
but
One of
the
the
thought on this.
what's
Sorry,
gone.
I was wondering when I got up to this area. I was wondering if one of these walls here was going to open,
Mm-hmm.
and I would not have had that thought. I would have not had that consideration had it been telegraphed that this wall is something that goes away, or if this had a gate here to show that that opened and closed with these. You could convey information more clearly if these were gates and they're open or closed, and then you hit the switch that the gates open or a gate slams shut.
Agreed.
That would be more information, but I don't know if that would be good information because that does take away part of the experimentation inherent to the
So for
quest
me, the
systems.
question it comes down to: does it reinforce the essential experience? Is it better to have all this stuff there, or is it better to see these and think, okay, I'm going to spend some time exploring so I learn what they all do? And I'm not sure I know the answer to that yet.
It's not an easy question, it must be said.
Oh, the Batman Arkham Riddler trophy things can bite me. Also,
But aren't they completely
there's something.
optional? You never actually have to do those in Batman, right?
No, but you're rewarded for doing so, and Batman's going to take some time in his busy schedule to go and stop saving the entire city and spend some time just hunting for bookmarks or whatever he's doing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're optional does give it a lot more leeway because that isn't part of the, yeah, that's extra content for people who want to do it, right? That's like, I don't know.
It is. I've never, and maybe this is me, I've never been one who wants to get all the collectibles in a big open world game. It's kind of what drove me mad about Assassin's Creed. Like, hey, you finished the main plot, but guess what? We've hidden 400 pigeons. Like, good for you. I agree. The cat wants
How
the
does that
400
make you
pigeons.
feel, Goliath? Goliath is all about the 400 pigeons, that's for sure. Goliath, have you ever seen a pigeon? Very
Yeah,
good.
some people are completionists, and I get it. And like for those kinds of people, I don't know. I have thoughts about the Ubisoft approach to open world games.
Yeah. A lot of it, I feel, is made for you to collect as many as you have fun with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A good example is the Yahaha in Breath of the Wild. You are expected to collect a certain amount of them organically through your playthrough. It's not supposed to be a completion goal. It's just so many of them to make sure that by the time you get to through the point in the game where it's expected you to have received a certain amount, no matter what path you've taken, you've randomly bumped into an X amount of them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that one works fine. I just remember when I was playing the first Watch Dogs when it came out. I'm not proud of it, but I bought it the hype. And I found some collectibles.
I got it for free, and
but
I
in
dropped
order to
it
get
for
the
free.
cool reward, I had to get all of them. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Even if your lead character has a terrible throat infection.
But yeah, like,
why do males in futuristic games have a throat infection? I never asked for this. It was a time of war. Swear to me.
honestly, it just comes down to air quality. The air quality is so bad in the future. It just happens naturally. It just starts to shred your throat over time. And, well, honestly,
maybe it was
we thought we were saving
Brexit.
a lot of saving the environment when we started burning nicotine for fuel. But now that the entire air is just like smoke, like smoking smoke, and it kind of just does this to your lungs.
After COVID-27, the shipping crisis meant there was no throat medication available.
Well, make sure you rate this video because no one's gonna find it on YouTube anymore. Sorry, YouTube buries videos with certain words in it.
Yes, it does. Throat medication.
And Goliath is also extremely angry about this fact.
Yep.
Hello. How angry are you? Oh, that was so sad. This is now a cat stream.
It's a cat stream. I approve.
So, fun fact. Whenever I actually have to hit a button on my NVIDIA broadcast software. Otherwise, it drowns out. It drowns out ambient. It pulls out ambient noise, right? Like, it's kind of the whole point of it. When Goliath walks in the room, I actually have to turn that off. Otherwise, it'll cut off his meows, and I know how much like everybody, both myself and collab partners and chat, all loves hearing Goliath whine. Like, because he's a very whiny kitty today. Oh my goodness, Goliath, what's your jazz? What is your jazz,
like
Goliath?
His cat. Well, his cat's asleep because it's 2:30.
But no, it's actually funny. I actually have to make the conscious decision to make sure that Goliath can be heard.
Yeah, he needs his airtime.
Exactly. He's earned it. Want to round this out here? Unless there was anything else you wanted to bring up. I mean, we could. Let's be honest.
I've got chorizo and brie in the fridge. Sorry.
Ooh, it sounds like you have a full night ahead.
Oh yes, I get my bedtime snack.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for playing my little prototype and giving me your thoughts. It was very instructional watching what you took for granted, what you got confused by, and what felt funnily and what was a surprise.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to have you on the channel and to collab with you. And like in general, you're a wonderful person, and thank you. I'm proud to call you my friend.
I agree. In general, you're a wonderful person. I'm proud to call you my friend too.
Yay.
That was quite hard to say. Sorry, it's 2:30, so I'm a bit slurry.
That's
like
fair,
I normally go
fair.
to bed around 1, but blah.
That's understandable.
Time zones can bite me. And thank you for the lovely Koboldian people for being so lovely and for having me and for all the jelly and the ice cream.
I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope everyone in chat has a wonderful evening too. Don't forget to hit all the buttons, the buttons that give me the serotonin boosts. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful evening. I'm going to be retiring to Discord, where I'm going to be hanging out with people. Feel free to join me there. I'm going to be using my own Discord, and I look forward to it.
And
Cheers,
I'm going to be
friends.
retiring to bed. Bye.
Bye.